Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today, we document Gibson and Slash's biggest flop together ever. That's right, we're talking about the Brazilian Dream Les Paul today. So, strap in for quite the interesting and unusual tale, because generally Gibson limited editions sell out fast. But what happens when they don't? Alright, so the year's 2018. Gibson and Slash, they have this big partnership where they do a whole bunch of different signature guitars. If I remember correctly, I think it's close to like 28 of them if you add them all up, not counting Epiphones, even more if you do then. They came out with this thing that they called the Brazilian Dream. And yes, it's got some interesting specs that we need to talk about, but it did not sell very well. These things sold so terribly, in fact, that I remember it was like the year 2020. Sweetwater still had one of these things kicking around, and it's because these things were $13,000 brand new. That is really, really expensive for a Les Paul. I mean, put things into perspective, there were other things at this point in time that were also considered expensive that was nowhere near this price tag. So what made this thing so crazily priced is the fact that they have Brazilian rosewood fretboards on them. However, generally, when you pay the big bucks to get the brass board, you want some sort of like a crazy, ultra highly flamed top, and that's not what these things are. You also want an R9, the 59 reissue, but that's not what these things are. They're R8s, 58s. So it was just kind of a weird blending of specs that just didn't quite work out as far as collectors' interest in 2018. And the next nail in the coffin for these is they made 150 of them. That's quite a significant amount of $13,000 guitars. Perhaps the saving grace, though, is each and every single one of these was hand-signed by Slash. This one happens to be number 48. So needless to say, a lot of these languished at dealer shops for quite some time and were eventually returned to Gibson, because they were just deemed unsellable. Some of them were also just like discounted really heavily at some point in time. But eventually people just kind of forgot about the Brazilian Dream because, as I said, it was kind of a flop. And I always kind of wondered what happened to all these things. And our answer just recently came about. So it's early 2022 for all you future visitors here, that the Gibson garage started to get these things back in, and Gibson put them back on their website. You have to remember, Gibson changed ownership between 2018 and 2022. This was an inherited problem that they didn't know exactly what to do with. So what the Gibson garage did is they called up all their usual high-end buyers and offered them these Brazilian Dreams for $13,000. And a couple of them contacted me. They're like, hey, should I be buying this? And I was like, no, you should not. And that's when I relayed the tale as I knew it at the time. But a lot of those guys purchased these thinking that they could probably flip them for $20,000, or they probably thought they were some sort of a new limited edition Slash because it just dropped on the Gibson website, unbeknown to them that it's the second time that these are the leftovers that nobody wanted at that point in time. And they sold through a good amount of these. I would say between like 10 to 15. I don't have the exact numbers, but that's about as many as I can assume that were out there. And some of them had success. They were able to get like 15, 16. Most of them were listing them at 20, but then they quickly realized that, yeah, not all these were selling. So after those were all done, in mid-2020, we start to see these things show up in the Gibson demo shop. So if you don't know, the Gibson demo shop, that's where Gibson sells off their factory seconds that weren't quite up to first quality. Like there's maybe a small ding here or there, they messed something else up on the guitar. So at the time of recording, I don't know how long this is going to go on, but so far there have been 20 in the demo shop. However, I do think they are just about done, but we'll have to keep watch just to see how many of these things end up there. So I think it's safe to say there's at least 30 to 35 of these that sat unsold out of the original 125. And when I first saw these things show up in the demo shop, they list about 3 or 5 of these each week. And the first week I saw these, I was like, oh man, they're gonna get hung with that. But it seems Gibson has finally gotten that sweet spot where these things will sell, because I am shocked. Every single week, within 24 to 48 hours, they all sell. And what's so cool about that is that means Gibson has established a brand new market for these, because previously these would be like $8,000 to $10,000 guitars on the used market. However, now Gibson has solidified these as like $10,000 to $12,000 guitars, because that's generally what they ranged at when they were listed in 2022 on the demo shop. So they kind of made these things relevant again. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of the Brazilian Dream, even I had to buy one of these to document this unique tale, because this is something that people will be talking about for years to come yet. So everybody roots for the underdog, right? And that's how I feel about the Brazilian Dream right now. These poor unwanted R8 plain top Brazilian board collector guitars. We gotta show them some love, right? But if anything that I've said about this guitar has upset you because you happen to own one or whatnot, just remember, sometimes history looks back fondly on things that did not sell too well. Like, look at those Carina Explorers. But anyways, for the rest of this video, let's appreciate this thing for what it is, because I don't think everybody knows all the case candy that comes with these. Because first off, we get a Slash hat. I'll be honest with you guys, this is one of the lamest Slash case candies ever, because this is supposed to be Slash's hat right here, not the trucker style one. But just for fun, it looks like Auto Collection made these things for Gibson. But that's not the only thing that came with this guitar. I was kind of wrong about that. I'd never seen all the other case candy. Now this is superiorly cool. We actually get Slash sunglasses. He's very well known for wearing something like this. Looks like we get some sort of a handkerchief or small bathing towel. Nah, just kidding. Probably meant to be a bandana of some sort, but that's actually really cool. I like that. So we get the Slash logo right here, but then there's dinosaurs. I don't know. I think I might have to keep this. My kids really like dinosaurs, so seeing those, that's awesome. Got a Stegosaurus over here. Some sort of like a raptor and some other beast. This thing's pretty cool. And we have a mystery baggie here. Let's see what they've got. Oh, sweet. A giant Slash belt buckle. That's pretty heavy duty looking right here. Looks like size large. Next up, it looks like we have some sort of like a wristband. So you can put it on like this or something. But you also get stuff like the pick guard if you wish to install it, your regular hang tags in here, historic collection stuff, custom shop and bumblebees. And we've got our COA that has a green Scully on it. It looks like this on the inside. As far as COAs go, I really like the royal green that they've got going on with this one. That's nice. And then, hey, just in case you missed it, this is a very special Lifton reissue case. It's the only one that I'm aware of that they've done in recent years that has a green interior. It works really well with these dark woody vibes. You know, it's kind of like a forest or something. And on the outside of this case, you also have a black Scully. Probably a missed opportunity to put a green one, but maybe it wouldn't show up as the black. Another thing about this interior is it's extra soft. A lot of the Lifton reissues are not soft like this material, so that's cool. We've got our Lifton sticker on in there. You get almost like Les Paul Jr. like alligator skin little pull tab right there. And of course they make this one historically accurately bad fitting, so they have to put all these foams in it. One neck rest and all. But now as far as the guitar itself, I'll be honest, it just kind of feels like a regular R8. It's got a cool vibe and history behind it, so get some of the signature guitar effect as far as that goes. But it's just got a nice 58 rounded neck profile. I mean, these are pretty chunky guitars. Can I notice any difference between this Brazilian rosewood and other rosewoods that I've had? Honestly, it doesn't look that crazy. Like, I like Brazilian when it's got like the nice red streaks in it and whatnot. But it appears we have like some sort of like a VOS type finish on this one. And the condition is pretty good despite being a demo. I think they said there's like some sort of a pression on the side, but I'll be honest, I cannot find it right now. So to learn more about the Brazilian Dream, let's go ahead and throw it on the workbench to take a look at its individual parts and specs before we get to that playing demo. Inside the Brazilian Dream, let's start with our pickups. We've got custom Bucker Alnico 3 styles in here. They just say patent applied for on the back. And in the signature Slash style, they're uncovered. That's what gives it his look. And inside our pickup cavities, you can see the long neck tenon that is hide glue constructed and put into the body. You can also see the maple block that caps off the truss rod that we talk about quite often. And then here's what the bridge pickup looks like. You know, for a $13,000 guitar, it's pretty rough in there. But remember, this was 2018, back in the Henry J era. They did birth some really cool guitars. But as far as nitpicky detail things, you know, sometimes they weren't the best. Now granted, at least they have the routes on the sides looking pretty good. It's really a non-issue. But interesting to note, there is a small chip in the finish right there, but it's completely covered over by this pickup ring. Interesting, I've never noticed this before. My pickup ring is completely cracked. That's strange, I was just about to tell you guys, hey, this has the really thick plastics, and they're all like period correct right stuff to make these. But I don't think that was disclosed in the ad. I might be able to get a replacement part for that. The good news is, all you need for a pickup ring is this part and that part. This is just there for cosmetics and to keep stuff out of your cavities.
But these pickups within the circuit read 7.69 k ohms for our bridge, our neck position 7.94, and now middle for fun 3.91. As far as the hardware goes, it's a ABR1 bridge mounted directly to the top. You've got your stop bar tailpiece here. Now, despite being signed, this was not an aged guitar. Like, the hardware has like a little bit of a light VOS treatment to it. I noticed that on our Schaller strap locks too. Got the faux rust going on here, and your lightweight aluminum tailpiece. However, the finish itself, it's pretty glossy. So the official color is called Dark Burst, but this is very similar to a vintage Sunburst. Kind of has some tobacco elements mixed in it, because typically vintage Sunburst means you have a completely like almost black border, and then you have like this yellowish orange color. Whereas this, it almost blends vintage Sunburst with tobacco Sunburst, because you've got this really dark border, but then you have the brown that true tobacco Sunburst is usually about. So they just called this one Dark Burst. It is kind of reminiscent of one of his other signature guitars. It's this one. The initial run had a piezo built within it, so that one was pretty cool. But if you're a collector looking for one of these, they were all two-piece plain tops. I mean, that's how most of the 58s were anyway, so that is technically true to historic specs. So you just gotta find one that you like the wood grain. Am I gonna lie to you and say this is the best wood grain I've ever seen on one of these? No, but it's a nice example. I like the waviness. There's certainly been worse ones. I'm actually quite happy with this one now that I'm really taking the time to appreciate some of that. But it does have that very slight VOS tinge to it. So it's kind of like somewhere in between what VOS looks like today versus full-on gloss. I like this. We'll take a second to appreciate our knobs here. They do have a light aging to them, meaning that they have a yellow tint. That'll help you see it a bit better. Then no pickguard stock from the factory on these guys. Two-piece maple top on a mahogany body, as we were seeing in here. They used ultra lightweight stuff on this, so we'll get that weight once we get everything put back together. But let's check out our mahogany neck with our Brazilian rosewood fretboard. I will say this Brazilian came a little bit more to life after I conditioned it, because Brazilian is usually a very dark rosewood. Sometimes you get the nice red streaks in it, like you can kind of see right here. Now for your average player, will you notice a big difference between Brazilian and regular? Probably not. But if you're a connoisseur or like a really great guitar player, maybe then. But people really go after Brazilian rosewood because, you know, that's what the original 50s ones had. You have to pay crazy premiums to get this from Gibson, because it's hard for businesses to use it. However, you know, if you had a replica luthier build one, for some reason they can get it just fine. I don't know. I think there's some paperwork and legalities behind it all, but I don't know everything. Just know, if you're looking at a Brazilian rosewood fretboarded Gibson product built after the 60s, you're going to be paying a huge premium for it. But we've got 22 medium frets. They use the Jescar fret wire on this one. The FW578 to be exact, according to the spec sheets. And of course our trapezoid inlays are using all the correct materials here as well. And this is very similar to like the true historics that were out at that period of time. Another historic feature of these guys that you'll find on all historic reissues are the side marker inlays on these are red because they're tortoiseshell. That's one of the ways you can find out if your 70s Les Paul Custom is Kalamazoo built or Nashville. You gotta look at the side marker inlays. It can be kind of hard to see on those, but the Kalamazoo made dots are a lot larger than the Nashville ones. We've even got the nylon nut up here. As far as neck specs, it measures about 1.7 inches at the nut width and increases to 2.06 by the 12th. First fret neck depth, 0.91, that's pretty chunky. And then wow, 1.05 by the 12th. They called this an authentic replica 58 neck profile. Here's that profile at the 1st and 12th fret, nice and rounded, nice and C-shaped. So as a quick recap here, 58s, 57s, they're the biggest necks you'll find in the Gibson territory of things. 1959 is kind of like that perfect in-between neck, and then 1960, that's when they go to the more slim offerings. So if you like big necks and you cannot lie, you want one of these. In my opinion though, the 57s are even bigger than the 58s as far as reissues go. I don't have any experience with real ones. But now we've got our head stack here. Beautiful ambered over Gibson logo, Les Paul model silkscreen. Here's what the truss rod looks like stock from the factory. That's how many of the custom shops look. There's nothing wrong with that one. Got one of those cool vintage style ones. You can even see the roller marks on the side, which might look like a defect, but I'm pretty sure that's like part of the charm. I've never really dove too much in the vintage 50s plastics. I just know that these things look sweet because of that big white beveled edge and then the raised black layer. I mean, these are way cooler than the Gibson USA style ones. They're a little bit more 3D. But moving on to the back here. Gorgeous wood grain on this one as well. Gibson didn't quite get too crazy with the red dyes in 2018. You really see that when like the new management comes in. Or at least that's when I first noticed it, when they get binding bleed just everywhere. Now that happened before then, but what I'm trying to say is this was very nicely stained. Not too crazy and over the top, but look at this wiring. That looks pretty clean and nice to me. You can see up here it reads R8. That stands for 1958 reissue. You can also find R9, RO, etc. Got our Bumblebee capacitors and 500K pots, all wired up 50 style. And I really like this touch. A black output jack plate. That's not technically correct for most reissues, but it looks so good with this. Whole red, black, tobacco, it's all going on. We've got our medallion up here. Why don't I take it off? Because the wood expands and contracts, so sometimes these are just stuck in there. Even the back plate on this one, I had to use my little suction pulley over here. You can use that to pull dents out of your car. I find sometimes that helps get these off, but it generally leaves like a small ring for a little bit. But I'm running into the issue where I can't get it back in. And we experienced this once before and somebody left a comment, and I definitely want to share that with you guys. Put it in the freezer for like 30 minutes. It shrinks the plastic just enough that it'll fit, and then you can secure it, and then it's there. Now to be clear, I'm talking the back plate, not the guitar. I mean, you could leave your guitar outside and make it expand, but definitely safer to do with the back plate. But thankfully, I was just able to push that one back in with a little bit of work. But as I was telling you earlier, these came stock with Schaller strap locks. I probably wondered, why is this one in the demo shop? What blemish was it? Because I did check between now and then. The pickup ring was not disclosed, so that's not what did it. Apparently, it was over here on the side. You gotta catch it in the light just right. There's like a very small impression right there. In Gibson's photos, I was expecting something way worse than that. But it is right there if you're looking for it. But when you don't have the light on it just right, I mean, you don't even see it. But while we're on the side, we can take a look at our thin binding in the cutaway. That's a historic feature, not a defect. And they were also saying there's like minor scratches and whatnot, but I mean, that's what VOS means. They put a gunk on it and they kind of scratch it up. But now we move on to our neck. Once again, nice and chunky. It's got a lot of good wood grain on this one. Not quite flame. It almost looks like it might have a little bit of flame dancing, but it does not. And then I'll stand corrected. I could have swore the first batch of these did have the demo stamped in them. But looking through the other sold listings, I do not see it. So I don't know how they're getting away with that. I feel like Gibson should be stamping these demo. At least up here, like not on Slash's signature, mind you, but right here to differentiate the ones that paid full retail price versus the slightly cheaper ones. Though at the same time, as a buyer of a slightly cheaper one, I like it this way, but it feels kind of like a slap on the wrist to the Gibson fans who did buy them back in 2018. But that is indeed Slash's signature. All of them were signed, so that's not necessarily special, and they were also numbered by him. This one is 43. And we can take a look at our single line, single ring Kluson tuners. So even though the price definitely hurt these guitars, I mean, you can see by the specs, they're fantastic reissues if this is what you're looking for. Slash spec'd 58 reissue with the Brazilian rosewood fretboard. But all said and done here, wow, 8 pounds, 6.5 ounces. That's really good for a solid body Les Paul. Like chambered, sometimes you get there. I mean, I think you're paying a premium for some of that as well. That's a good weight. Technically, there are sub 8 pounds, but those are really rare. But let's go ahead, plug this one in, and see how it sounds.
the slash tone in the distorted segment? Heck yes it does. It's really all about the neck pickup on this thing too. It's so juicy. Now let's dial it back and do some cleans. Once again, the neck pickup's really stealing the show. The bridge has got the bite that you need. Now that we know all about the Slash Brazilian Dream Les Paul, what are my final thoughts on this thing? I mean, don't get upset with me. This is still a big flop for Gibson and Slash. However, it is a fantastic guitar. I think they just were maybe a little bit too optimistic back in 2018 with their price point. Had this have been released today, yeah, probably would have been an instant sellout, but that's not exactly the tale for this one. So, is the demo shop finally done throwing these things in it? Maybe, just maybe, but only time will tell for that. So I'll try to keep updating the description of this one because, no, they really did breathe new life into these things. They were able to get them to people who wanted to play these as well as collect them at a slightly cheaper price. And it really is a great guitar if this is what you're looking for. A Slash spec, ultra high-end custom reissue type thing with a plain top and the Brazilian rosewood fretboard, and you needed a trucker hat. And a belt buckle and stuff. I mean, it definitely nailed the tones. I was happy with this through my Marshall Blues Breaker. So expensive gigging guitar or really cool collector's piece. You choose whatever it is. But if nothing else, I hope you enjoyed this interesting tale today. All right, troglodytes, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.